Beep. Okay, so first off, let me try to say this as nicely as possible about myself. These videos disgust me because this is not how I would go about teaching you this material. But I feel like it's important that you have this material before you get to 8th grade or algebra. Okay, so please understand that if your algebra teacher, would be me next year, this is not how I would teach it. Okay, so please understand that. In the last video, we talked about slope was the steepness of the line. And I said one way to figure out the slope was with rise divided by run. And I didn't even use the word divided by in the first video. I said rise over run. And I said rise goes both up and down, run goes both left and right. Now, again, this is part of it what disgusts me. A lot of teachers will say, rise over run, just do it. That's not what we're really doing, okay? When we make an equation, when we have a function, every point on that graph, whatever it happens to be, every point is a solution to some equation. It is 2 points. It doesn't matter. It's an X and a Y, an S and a T. It's 2 points that will relate to the graph that actually will affect something, okay? So really, rise divided by run is talking about the difference in 2 separate points. In very high level math, we have delta y divided by delta x. This means the change in y divided by the change in x. What we really are going to use is the equation y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, which is equal to m. And if you remember from the first video, m is another way of saying slope. So what does this y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1? Well, sometimes we feel like a nut, sometimes we don't. Okay, that has nothing to do with it. We have an x coordinate, we have an y, or let me try this again. We have an x-axis, we have a y-axis. If I've got a point on the graph, can I use rise over run to find the slope? Absolutely. This point and this point are answers to some equation that we don't quite know yet. Sometimes you'll be given the equation and asked to graph. Sometimes you'll be given a graph and asked to find the equation. Sometimes you won't even be given the graph. Sometimes you'll just be given 2 answers to a particular equation. In this case, we have the point 0, -2 and 1, +2. I want to find the slope of this. Okay, so I'm taking these 2 points and I'm writing them out. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to erase this because you're usually not going to be given that when you have this right here. More often than not, you'll be given 2 points and it'll say, okay, find slope. So we're trying to find y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. These numbers that are small to the next, those are called the subsets. Y subset 2 minus y subset 1, x subset 2 minus x subset 1. All that means is we have 2 different points. So I'm going to put first point, second point. This is an x, this is a y, this is an x, this is a y. And I'm going to label this every time. If this is my first point, this is x1, this is y1. This is x2, this is y2. Here's the best part. If you said this was my second point, this was my first point, great. It does not matter as long as the numbers stay the same, okay? So I'll explain in a second. Let's try this the first time. So it says y2. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write my equation. So I know that it's y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. y2 is 2 minus y1. And I'm glad that I did this the first time. My y1 is -2. Does this say -2? Well, this portion does, but remember the equation is minus y1. So when that happens, you need to think that no matter what, this second number, no matter what, is acting like it's going into parentheses. So I have 2 minus a negative 2, 1 minus 0. 2 minus a negative 2, well, minus a negative becomes positive. So that's 4 divided by 1 minus 0 is 1. So my slope means it's going up 4, running 1. Does that make sense? Is this positive? Sure. Positive means that it's going uphill. The bigger this number is, the more uphill that it's going to go. Mr. H, you said something about it doesn't matter which point is what. Correct. So let's say you're, I don't know, trying to be funny, or you're just trying to be a jerk and you're like, Mr. H, watch this. I'll make this the second point. Go for it. I hope you do. I hope somebody's sitting there right now going, prove you wrong, Mr. H, you dumb guy. I do a lot of dumb things, but I'm not a dumb man. So let's try it this way now. So if this is the second point, this will be x2, this will be y2, this will be x1, this will be y1. Let's set it up into the equation again. So my equation is y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1, and it's a division problem. So y2 is negative 2. I always want to think that my second point's in parentheses. y1 is 2. x2 is 0. x1 is 1. So let's see what happens. Negative 2 minus 2. If you have a calculator and you need to do this, well, okay, get it. That's going to be negative 4. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. Well, let's divide. Negative 4 divided by negative 1 is, oh man, a negative divided by a negative is positive. Crap, wait a minute. Holy moly. Mr. H, not only are you devilishly handsome and you're growing in your hair to grow a man bun, but you are right. You have the same answer. Of course I do. I'm good at middle school math. Okay? The equation is y2 minus y1. So y, is this the same as rise over run? This is the same as rise over run because when we think about our axes, our y goes up and down, our x goes left and right, okay? So when we talk about rise, rise is up and down. So it's the change from one point to the next point in the rise. The run is left to right. How far is that slope going from one point to the next point across? So you might be given, something like this. 7 minus 2, negative 7, negative 3. I don't care which you want to make the first point. I don't care which one you make the second point. I will, me personally, when I teach you, I'm going to say, hey, if it comes first, it's the first point. So I will say x1, y1, which makes this x2, y2. And then I would ask you to rewrite the formula. We know that it's y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, and that equals slope. So now, let's substitute in y2 minus, put it in parentheses, y1 divided by x2 minus x1 equals negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5. Negative 7 minus 7 is negative 14. I cannot simplify 5 and 14, but I can simplify a negative divided by a negative, which is a positive 5/14. So my slope is 5/14. And here's what I'll say. When the fraction is not improper, we had 4 over 1, that's an improper fraction. The larger our fraction, what I mean by that is the more improper that it gets, the steeper it is. The smaller the fraction, okay, 5/14 is a lot less than 1, the lower, the less steep it's going to go. So really, in essence, if I were to graph a point, let's say it starts at 0, I would go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's not very steep, okay? And that's what we're doing. We use slope to find steepness. Remember, slope is the constant rate of change. It's how much that line goes from one point to the next point. If it goes from one point to this point, back to this point, it's not going to be linear, because we know linear must be a straight line. y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. The third video that you'll get on Friday will now start talking about slope-intercept form and how we can find slope. Have a great night.